Good afternoon and welcome to Predictive Analytics User Experience, a case study, a webinar organized and hosted by the CUNY School of Professional Studies MS in Data Analytics program. Our presenters today will be Chris Tanck, CEO and co-founder of RockDaisy Inc., and Honey Burke, Director of Technology at the CUNY Building Performance Lab and a current student in the MS in Data Analytics program. We'll take your questions in a Q&A at the end of the presentation, so please post your questions in the question box. And welcome, Honey and Chris.
Goals that are integrated or that match the bar that I clicked on. So the point here is all of your video and pictures and things like that can be directly integrated with the charts. So if I click on that video, we'll see that play come up. And this comes with full sound. We can play multiple videos on the same screen for different camera angles. We can actually do some interesting stuff with telestration if we want to telestrate right on the screen. So you can kind of take notes. So kind of, again, an engaging experience. Post it to Facebook, Twitter. And at the end of the day, you can save this. So if you want to come back and look at the same information again, but the data will update in real time, I can save it and come back and look at this particular dashboard or collection of reports again. Okay. Another example would be looking at TV analytics in something like a Tableau or Microsoft. It would be Tableau and Microsoft. So again, this is standard tools that are off the shelf, but I want to show how maybe integrating the video and audio and with these charts to make it a little more engaging for your executives. So this example, and if we go to this same example, I can choose my television shows as before we were choosing players, and I can compare television shows. I'm just going to choose Game of Thrones, which I have here, and then I chose a collection of reports. So these are all sample Nielsen rating data. And what we're looking at here is structured Nielsen ratings data in real time, or was in real time. We can look at social media data that's happening in real time. And if we see something interesting happening, whether it be looking at male, female, 18 to 34-year-olds in certain periods of the show, who's watching it, or we see certain spikes in the Twitter feed, we can look at the video as to see what might be happening on those television shows. For example, if I see this 8.1 million males watching Game of Thrones at this point, I can click on that. And we can watch that. So that might help with advertising revenue, product placement, so ways integrating video can make these statistics a little more valuable than just the statistics themselves.
Hi, this is Honey. So, Chris, we were talking amongst the MSDA students this year about ways to actually use RockDaisy to predict things for predictive analysis. How would you use maybe the Twitter data here in that way?
Yes, so the Twitter data is we're looking at it as it's happening, and we can look at current Twitter data and prior Twitter data or Facebook, but what I think would be interesting to use some of the skills that the CUNY students have to start to predict some of the demographics of this Twitter data and try to forecast what just as we might want to try to forecast who's going to watch the show, who would be more engaging with the show on social media.
Well, so it seems like a great way to actually look at real-time data as opposed to just historical viewing.
Right, correct. That and future data. I thought, Honey, maybe you could just you can just talk about the one thing the students were talking about earlier with me about. Right now, I'm just showing a list of players, and we can sort the players, by team or alphabetically. But I think CUNY students had some other interesting ways of organizing this list.
Yeah, absolutely. We thought that maybe you could, instead of just filtering in this way, you could use the data to filter and predict how a player is going to perform in the next 20 games, or even help to make a decision about what the value of a player will be to a team in the long term.
Yeah, those are great things, again, because we're looking at past performance, so being able to use some of this information to predict future performance would be a great thing to add to this tool. So I'm going to go back to the other example I wanted to show. I don't have a before example. The reason I'm showing you this example, this is a rugby example, was that we can do not only pie charts and bar charts and line charts, but you can include them, so here's a field chart. But more importantly, when you click on this tries by team, tries in rugby are the equivalent of touchdowns in the NFL. I click on this 6, I get the tries. And I wanted to show this because here we have a TV copy and a copy where the television cameras are capturing who's on the field. And what we're doing here is streaming that data that's being captured by the cameras and presenting statistics about the game and the players. But again, I think the CUNY students have some other interesting ways of what we can do with this data that's being captured in real time by cameras, players playing the game.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it would be really great to take a look at how people are getting injuries, and could you use that to predict when they're going to get injured and help them not be injured in the future?
Yeah, so maybe looking at how many miles they had run during the game or the rate of impact between players, those kinds of things could be recorded, I think, by these cameras, and with some of the great things CUNY's doing, being able to start to predict or forecast possible outcomes of events that are happening in the game.
That seems like it would save someone a ton of money in the future.
Yeah, and it would, right? A lot of these players get paid millions of dollars, so if you could prevent even one injury, that could be millions of dollars to a team. Not just in rugby, but in all sports. So I'm going to go back to PowerPoint a second. And I know we were talking about, the examples I was showing are really sports entertainment focused with the video integration, video audio, but not every business has video and audio, but they do have lots of sales metrics and just financials in general. So I just, again, want to just one last time highlight that this is something, again, off the shelf from Microsoft. Everybody's seen stuff like this. So this is kind of a sales collection of sales reports. And I took those same kinds of sales reports and put it into something that I feel would, again, help executives and decision makers engage with the data and retain it more than if they were looking at something like this. And again, the CUNY students, I think, had some other good examples and things we can add to the platform that would make this not only good for prior performance, but possibly for future performance.
Right, I know, coming from the business side of things, I'm pretty tired of looking at PowerPoint slides myself. So in addition to looking great, I mean, looking so much better than PowerPoint, I think we were talking about things like looking at not just the top 5 customers now, but predicting where your best sales opportunities are and being able to actually forecast sales. And that's a lot more valuable to me than looking at static sales data.
Yeah. Right. So this is, as you mentioned, it is real time. So if the numbers again, PowerPoint's kind of a static look at information. So if something like this would be in real time or as up to date as the data is in the systems that you're looking at. So just to to go back to what I was saying is, at my core and my partners and the people that are in my company, we're really data people. So we're data people who built this platform for data people. So the people that work with information all day can focus on that part of their job and not have to worry about so much on how to present it or how to not have to put it in Excel or cut and paste it into PowerPoint, how we can offer people in our community a way of presenting all of their great work. So, you know, just to remind everybody what we did was we kind of had this branding. Again, I'm used to using this wording, but branded analytics, which again feels like your brand. We do have, I'll flash to it really quickly, but a toolkit where you can add in all of your data reports. It is open source, so there is ways to add in algorithms and code that we haven't included in our platform. And we're also able to, as we kind of just briefly showed in some of these examples, how to include structured data, you know, the unstructured, which was the video, social media, and kind of tie that all together in one single interface. I'm just going to flash quickly to the interface for so I'm showing kind of the let's see if otherwise we're stuck here. So this is kind of the interface where, you know, you can add connections to your databases or data sources. This could be social media, it could be internal databases, it could be, you know, Hadoop. There's many different ways you can sources you can connect to. This is where you would put in your queries and the different things. So this was kind of what was powering the whole, all the reports that you saw. These are all the reports that you saw on the screen in one of the demos, the different reports here. So there is a toolkit, again, extensible by people, and you can add in your information. There is another toolkit to where you can add your company logo and your company branding. So you know, I showed you a few examples, but everything you saw today, we used our own toolkits to build them. So I'm confident that if this was something you'd be interested in trying out, which you can go to our website, I'll put the address up at the end, there's nothing to install. You just kind of sign up, will give you a link, and you can try putting data from whatever data source you'd like to and present it on the screen to see how it looks.
So, Chris, we have some questions about the benefits of RockDaisy over Tableau and other tools, and I know you started to go into that, but maybe you can expand a little bit about the multiple data streams and different types of data you can bring in, the video.
Yeah, so again, I think that most of the tools, at least from my experience, and this is why I had to do this at the NFL, we struggled with finding tools that were able to present video and audio and being integrated with our data. They always were two separate systems. So again, Tableau and Microsoft, pretty much all the tools out there, they can present data, but they don't have any integration with multimedia of any kind, at least from my perspective when I saw them. And again, I think those tools, although they can present data, I think they kind of have a look that is, you know, most of them aren't touch friendly. Most of them, again, feel like not your brand. They feel like you're looking at somebody else, which you are. You're looking at a Microsoft tool. So it doesn't feel like your brand, and I think that people are less inclined to engage with something that doesn't feel like their own. So, I'll take questions if we have questions. I'll just leave this up here for people, just if they want to send an email or a LinkedIn or check out our website or anything like that for more information. I'll just leave that up here.
So we had some questions, Chris, about some examples of predictive analytics. I know we mentioned a few things, being able to predict best customers, best potential customers using sales data. We talked about looking at sports data, even being able to predict injuries and how to prevent that. We looked at ways to add value to customers as well, lifetime value of a customer. So you can actually look at historical data and data that's streaming in and look at this lifetime value proposition. Can you say something about that?
Said a lot there. Well, I could tell you. Well, I'll give you a quick NFL example as a kind of a predictive lifetime value or market value. I'm doing work with NFL teams now to help them predict a market value of an NFL player. And so, for example, what's a player worth who maybe had a knee injury, who's 26 years old, and is a running back, versus that same type of player who's a kicker? Or so different players, different positions, different ages, different injury history or lack thereof. You can start to predict the lifetime value, the market value of a player, and what's the probability that he will still play in the NFL after a certain amount of years, based upon all the different characteristics that make the player up.
And I think it's important to clarify that the predictive analytics is added actually to the data downstream. It's not that the predictive analytics are added into the data itself, not the report. So
that's correct. Correct. Yes. So I think we're doing a good job, what I'll call as comparative analytics, but I think laying the different predictive algorithms and things that CUNY and other people are doing could make it that much better.
Yes, and I think the report actually makes the data more accessible at that point and allows you to pull in more of that different data.
Correct. I think at the end of the day, the report is what most people are going to see, so I want to make that as user-friendly as possible.
Chris, I think you mentioned something about being RockDaisy being open source. I don't think you meant open source exactly.
Well, you can I meant open source. I guess you can write your own web services, so you can connect to sources that are not out of the box from RockDaisy. So you can include web services. You can include connectors to other databases that we're not providing at the moment. Any of the social media feeds, we're doing all the usual ones: Twitter, Facebook, Vine, Instagram, but there are a lot of others out there. So I guess that's what I meant. I wasn't clear on that.
So you can use like the Twitter API, etc., but then Correct. You can also build your own.
You can build your own. If you have your own custom system at your business, and you have an API to it, you can write a web service to that API and include that information in this interface.
Right, so you don't have an API or web services actually written right now specifically for RockDaisy, but you can make use of almost anything that's in a particular format or...
Correct. We have a spot in that toolkit where you can, we have it laid out in our documentation, the types of webs, if you want to write your own, what we expect, how it to return the data. But again, we have done ones for and Facebook, some of the ones that most people want.
I think the most important question that I've ever seen anyone ask is, why is the name RockDaisy?
That's a good question. Well, I had someone tell me why I should name it RockDaisy, so I'll give you their example. That all of us work with data, which is kind of a bunch of rocks, someone said one day, and what we're doing with this platform is trying to turn it into daisies. So I'll leave it. I'll stick with that one for today.
There is a question about the PowerPoint being shared. We definitely will do that. We also really encourage you to go up and sign up for an account. It'll be free for how long?
No, you can use it. It's similar to many other tools. You can use it free, so it can't be used in production, that type of thing. So when you sign up, we'll send you kind of the details, but it's kind of indefinite.
Yeah, and I think we'd also love to see what people are doing with this. So if you'd like to, email us, let us take a look at, even if you put dummy data in there, we're really open to, more suggestions about how this can be useful as a tool for you in whatever your industry is.
Yeah, that would be kind of something I do have in my little document that I encourage people, since we're kind of providing this platform for people to use. In return, we'll just hope to just get some feedback on what you like, what you don't like, maybe some examples of how you're using it. It just helps us make the product better.
There's a question about comments on the algorithms used on the platform. Can you comment on any of that?
On the algorithms themselves, I'm not sure about how to comment on them. They're not. I'm not do. I guess the only thing I can say I'm not doing anything that's very proprietary to RockDaisy. I'm using standard algorithms without getting too much into the details of them. Whether it be native data structured database calls, SQL calls, or streaming data from YouTube was what you saw there. So pretty standard stuff. Just kind of putting it together in an organized way. That's what I think I'm doing.
Well, and I think one of the great things is that you told me that this tool came out of your actual work with the NFL, not just your work, but some of your colleagues, and you really started to develop this, right, as part of your day-to-day activity.
Right, yeah, so like I was saying, the people in RockDaisy are all, data people, and we built this, again, for data people, and built it as a necessity, because I found it frustrating to spend a lot of time gathering data, organizing data, putting algorithms on data, and then having to put it into Excel. I just felt like I wasn't showing the great work that we had done. So we wanted to build a platform for people to use.
So can you give us just a short description, a little use case study here? How would RockDaisy help a sports team make a decision about which player to draft?
Yes, so one way we could do that, and we're starting to put some things together for next year, is taking in all of the NFL Combine statistics, which is the player's height, weight, arm length, bench press, and all the different things that college players have to or should do before they try to enter the NFL. And then if we present that to the user in the interface, we can start to show them which players in certain positions have more likely to succeed based upon their characteristics.
So a little bit of fantasy football in your future?
Yeah. We are going to have a fantasy football app coming this fall. So we'll have that on our website, but it's called Top Dog Stats, and I don't have anything to show on that quite yet, but if you look out for Top Dog or go to RockDaisy, and next month you'll see some information on that and how that's going to look.
Great. So a few questions. What types of charts are available? Is there a limit to?
Yeah, they're right now. We're supporting line, bar. I can actually pull it up right now really quickly, but it's all your standard charts. I'm struggling here, but So these are the charts: line, bar, column, area, pie, donut. There are more we could support. We just found from our experience that these were the most common that people used. So now as to have 100 choices of charts, we tried to keep it to under 10.
Okay, and again, we'd love to hear from you guys if there's something, someone out there who has a great idea for a different type of chart or visualization. We'd love to hear that. And how do you, I think we talked a little bit about this, but there's a question about how do you integrate public data and third-party data?
Well, so when we say public data, I'm thinking like Twitter and Facebook would be, so those are through the kind of the APIs.
Even there, like New York City, for instance, has an open data law where all their data on, the ratings of the health ratings of restaurants and, the number of potholes in the street, that type of public data that doesn't really have an API, but, you can pull that data in from somewhere.
Yeah, I guess you could pull that in the one way, short of kind of importing that into your database and then accessing it that way. But we can use Excel or text-delimited files as a source. So if they didn't have any API of any kind, I guess the only way would be to go to their site, cut and paste it into a notepad or an Excel file, and then just import it in. And as long as that Excel file was in the same location every day, it would just keep updating as long as somebody updated the data.
I think a really important question about security now are a way to ensure that people's data is not at risk. So what type of security measures have you integrated into the system?
Yeah, so I didn't get into it here, but there's two ways to source the data. Right now, everything we're looking at is in the cloud. I know it's not just security, I'm just saying that that's in the cloud, but the other way to access your data is in your local databases behind your firewall. So we can access data, so this pie chart, one pie chart can be from a cloud source and one bar chart can be from your internal source, or all internal. So if you're accessing your data internally, then it would be as secure as your network is. And the one thing I didn't show on demo, but just to show it here real quick, if we can see when you come to the main login screen, it does give you a prompt and that type of thing. So from the front end perspective, you need to have a username and password to get in.
Okay. And will this be offered as a subscription-based cloud service?
It is. It is. So it's a software as a service, but again, the data does not have to be in the cloud. But either way, the price that we will be charging is doesn't matter whether the cloud's in. It's a per month thing. It's cloud in, whether it be the data in the cloud or on premise. Either way.
Okay, so maybe another little use case question. How do you think an organization could use video and data together to make some better decisions?
Sorry,
video and other sources of streams of data.
So outside of sports and outside of television and media, I think another big example would be security. We had one company recently talking to us, a company that owns 1,100 nightclubs, and they are capturing the number of people that come into the nightclub, and they want to know, the rate of male-female coming in there. So demographics, they can tell at what times they're coming in, the age of the person, and then have, being able to have a real-time look at their information. I think drones are really big too these days. And drones are all about capturing video, and so to be able to see not only the statistics of what the drones are capturing, but actually watch the video, that'd be another way. Military is another big example. All the military things that are out there that are capturing information, integrating that with video would be another another use case.
Actually, that's a really great thing because I work with buildings and energy data, and we try and figure out how many people are in a building at any point during the day. So people swipe in, and you know they come in, but they never swipe out. So you could actually analyze that video to see how many people were coming in and out and get a better idea of, you know, when you needed air conditioning and, you know, when you could really shut down things. So that's a great idea. Thanks. Let's see. If the data is not in the cloud, does it need to move to the cloud to do the analytics?
No, no. So you can have it internally, and so it doesn't have to move to the cloud. And the reason we did that, by the way, is working with professional sports teams. They refuse to put their data in the cloud a lot of times. So and financial institutions.
Great. And what are some additional collaboration features of RockDaisy, someone asked?
Well, you can share any of the dashboards or reports through Twitter and Facebook. You can also share them through email. So if I can just send a link, and since it is browser-based, when you get the link in an email, you can, assuming you have permissions, you can click on it, and it will open up, bring you back to that actual collection of reports live. So then you can interact with them, reshare them, and that kind of thing.
So is there a way that RockDaisy can help you clean data or proof out your data somehow?
It's not really an ETL tool to cleanse data. It's more of a presentation / integration tool of data. So it's kind of relying on the other industry tools out there for that.
I bet there's a way to really use it to pull out outliers in data, though.
Yeah, definitely outliers. If you see something out of the ordinary, that would be a way to kind of flag something to go back and look at the source data.
And I guess a question from my point of view, from experience in presenting to large groups, how do you feel about actually live pulling in some of this data in the middle of a presentation to your boss or in a group? I mean, do you think the platform, obviously you think it's stable enough to be able to do that, but I could see people being concerned about, well, am I going to get up there and this isn't going to work, or does it require special plugins, or can it be any browser, that sort of thing?
There are no plugins. It can be any browser. I just presented it today live. This is all live today, so.
And you did great.
I was confident enough to do it here, so I'd be confident.
Okay. I mean, I think no more questions at the moment. I mean, if there were a couple of two great takeaways that you wanted people to have from this.
I guess the two takeaways were that, I think it's an easy to use interface that can have, multiple sources of information on a single screen. I think a lot of the tools out there, you can look at video in one system, you can look at data in another system, you can look at Twitter and social media analytics in another system. I haven't seen many that put them all together, so I think having one place to see everything is important, and and again, having that one place where everything is, to have it feel like your brand or your company is important.
And I think that's pretty much, there was a question about your main value add over competitors, but I think you've pretty much answered that. Have you done testing with smartphones or tablets, iPads, different platforms?
Yeah, so this runs on any, this runs on any browser, and it also runs on it runs on iPad, it runs on Surface, it runs on PC, it runs on Mac. It does run on an iPhone. It's not optimized for a phone in that the screen is kind of built in a wire. It's built for today. What you've seen, everything was built for a tablet or a screen, but it would run on a phone. We are working on kind of making a more narrow version of the screen just so it kind of fits. But that's it's more of a fitting, not a functionality of the tool.
Okay. There's a very specific question, not to put you on the spot, but about medical or hospitals. Can you think of an application for the medical field?
Yeah. I think a good example would be maybe I'm showing videos, so I'm not sure how much live video there is in hospitals, but I know there's lots of X-rays and other things. So instead of, if we're looking at statistics of or things that are happening going on in the hospital, and I want to click on a bar, instead of clicking on the bar and looking at LeBron James's baskets, I could click on a bar and look at this person's X-rays or some other pieces of information besides the number itself. I think that would be useful.
Yeah, probably help you, I would think, figure out how to fill beds in the hospital, or what's filled, or what priorities are, things like that. What about, have you heard anyone talk about some obstacles they've encountered in using the product?
I wouldn't say too many. I mean, I guess I haven't heard too many obstacles. I mean, we finished the product about 6 months ago, so everybody that's used it and used it for what it's expected to do has been very happy with it. We've definitely got some feedback in terms of things that we can add to it to make it better, but I think for what it does it well. So I have a long list of to-do things, but no, those obstacles were more enhancements that they wanted more so than obstacles.
Okay. What about another specific use case, passenger airline industry? That's a good one.
Yeah, it really kind of fits in a lot of places. You know, again, there's probably something to be said in there with security. Same that we were talking some of the security examples we gave before. I think there's something to be said for demographics and security lines and just the busyness of airports on certain days and times.
So great question from MK here about supported use cases. I know we've talked about some of them in sports and TV, now some individual and specific industries. A question about, do presenters typically want to present live data, or is this more a tool for sharing data in a dynamic format?
I mean, definitely sharing data, I would say definitely sharing data in a dynamic format. You know, I kind of like to be able to show it in presentation, and the reason I like to do that is because if questions come up during a presentation, you know, what about this, or did you ever look at that? If I'm in a PowerPoint, I can't answer that question in front of somebody. I have to say, I have to get back to you. So I think it's pretty compelling to be able to answer a question right on the screen, right in front of somebody, whether it be with the video or whether it be if someone says, you know, why were the ratings up during that time? If I could click on that and show them that as opposed to saying I'll get back to you, I think it's just more compelling.
Hey, and how long does it take typically to set up a dashboard, and what sort of skill level do you need to do that? Could it be someone, you know, I mean, I know we have a lot of data people out there. Would it be the data people, do you think? Would it be admin people?
Yeah, anybody who, at the minimum, if you have a Transact SQL background, so be able to query information from a database, that would be the minimum. But you know, typically it takes, depending on how organized your data is and that type of thing, 2 to 4 weeks to get up and running. And you know, we RockDaisy are working with customers in which we'll come in for 2 to 3 weeks, help them set up the initial one, train whoever needs to be trained on how to do it going forward, so then they can, you know, we'll leave, they'll have something that works, and then going forward you're able to kind of continue on adding reports, and we'll come in and help give you the custom look, unless you have a graphics person who wants to do that. We have some custom themes, or I should say custom themes, just themes you can choose from if you just don't care about a particular branded look.
In terms of pulling video and audio, can that be, you know, pulling from sources like YouTube or Vimeo or SoundCloud?
Yeah. Yes, it can. So the two examples that I had shown, well, 3 examples I showed. The basketball was from YouTube. the rugby was straight from video cameras, and the TV was from a CDN, a content delivery network, so that was on disk. So I haven't tried every video source out there, but the fact that we're doing YouTube, I'm confident if they offer an API as YouTube does, I can go and get SoundCloud and other things.
Great. So Chris, how important do you think design is to report users?
I think it's very important. Again, a lot of the work I'd done at the NFL, I spent a lot of time organizing data and collecting data, but when I had to go in front of NFL owners or coaches and try to present that information, if it didn't feel like NFL, it didn't look like football, and it looked like Excel or Microsoft or something else, they didn't want to see it. It had to look like the NFL and feel like the NFL, or it didn't matter to them. Whatever, it didn't matter what I was going to show them. That's how important it was, at least there.
That's great. So I have a question about some of the data that's pulled in. Are those can those videos come in dynamically based on parameters you set, or?
Yeah. So when I clicked on that bar, for example, for three-pointers, it right at that point it goes and pulls all the three-pointers. When I click on demographic ratings for a certain television show, so those are pulling the videos dynamically based upon the chart or what you're clicking on. So those aren't hard-coded in any way.
Right. And how about, can you actually use this almost to recommend things? Like if I like this player, show me videos.
Yeah, and I think yes. Well, that was something I think we're working on with CUNY would be, kind of a recommendation engine would be, show me, maybe I pick LeBron James or Carmelo Anthony, or in my fantasy football future app, if I wanted to pick, show me these 2-3 players, it would be nice for the engine to potentially show me 3 other those players, especially if the players are already picked by other teams, so I don't have access to them. So I think that definitely could be there. I think that definitely plays into that whole custom API that we talked about before.
Right, or maybe even, suppose I pick these 3 types of companies for targeting as customers, show me half a dozen more that'll be potential targets just like that within a size or something like that.
Same concept.
How about, here's an interesting question. Should a team sign a 35-year-old to a 7-year contract? Very important question.
I don't know. Unless you're Brett Favre, probably not. I don't know if you need my analytics for that question.
So can you tell us what you mean by comparative analytics?
Yeah, I think comparative analytics are a way of looking at one or more items kind of side by side. I mean, and that was a term I kind of coined or brought up, as opposed to predictive, as many people here and on the call are familiar with, kind of those predictive models, those forecasting models. I think that's different than comparing 2 players or 2 companies or 2 stocks, that what's happened over the past 5 years. So I think that's more of a comparative than a predictive.
Okay. There's a question about text data. So if you have a lot of text data to organize, how would be the best way to organize that in RockDaisy?
Yeah, so I mean we can bring in unstructured data, but we're not, again, we're for that in particular, dealing with that type of unstructured data, we're not doing anything with unless a customer would, again, put, there are a lot of tools out there that have APIs that deal with text data. We can write to those APIs, or the customer can, you can, but we don't have anything out of the box as part of the RockDaisy platform like we do for Twitter for text data.
We would love suggestions, though, about what to do with that and what you'd like to see done with that, though. A question about those 3-pointer videos. So what or who designated those videos as three-pointers? How do you tell?
We personally went through the top 50 NBA players of last year and went through their missed field goals, three-pointers, dunks, and just organized it. Very similar to how an NFL team would go through the videos week by week and scout and tag plays for players and teams.
Okay, and I know, as you said, you just finished the product 6 months ago. So there's a question about the typical number of licenses that a client would usually obtain, and what's your largest license client, or maybe something that you have in the works right now?
Yeah, so typically, a customer will take the platform, and we give 5 licenses away as part of the initial price. So people generally will just start off with that, see if they like it, and then we charge a few $100s per user after that. That's kind of the most common way people, license the tool. But we are working with a big sports network, and they kind of want to do they don't even want to license it, they want to white label the whole thing. So they want to basically take the whole product and brand it their own, and so it won't look like RockDaisy, but the engine behind it would be RockDaisy. So we're kind of in talks with them of how that's going to work.
Great. I think that's all the questions we have time for. Chris, how can we get a copy of the slide deck if we want?
I'll send it through CUNY, I guess.
Okay, so we can.
Yeah, so I'll provide it to CUNY, and they'll provide it to everybody.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Chris, do you have any closing words?
No, I think I closed twice. So I appreciate everyone's time, and thanks for everyone's busy. So thanks again.
Thanks to everyone. We look forward to having you try the product and let us know, and we look forward for your interest in our MS Data Analytics program as well. I can tell you as a new student, it's pretty challenging and really worthwhile. So thank you.